I want to talk to you about the crazy cycle of abuse. So, abuse happens or increases when the tension builds within the abuser. Whatever it is that causes the abuser stress or to feel uncomfortable in the relationship or to feel uncomfortable in their own life or to feel challenged in the relationship or insecure to where they think that they have to kind of one up you and push you back down. And they do this in many different ways. So, and that's not the subject of this video. So, if you want to look at more of that, you can look on my channel and find other videos on abuse in the abuse playlist. So, the tension escalates within the abuser, and then the abuse happens. And what happens to you when the abuse happens is you're thrown off guard and you are basically, it feels like the rug is pulled out from under your feet. It could be that you kind of were lulled into a place of complacency, thinking maybe not that it's over, but maybe it's getting better. And then all of a sudden, wham, the abuse comes back, whether that's a verbal abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse. So the abuse happens. You have the rug pulled out from under your feet. You're shocked because it actually is shock that you feel. And when you go into shock, you go into that state where you are like, is this happening? Is this what I think it is? I can't believe it's happening. You go into a little bit of denial. You pull back and think, no, is this, I guess this is abuse again. It doesn't feel good. So you kind of grapple with that for a while. And then the abuse can stay and it can escalate, especially if it's verbal or emotional abuse. Maybe it is a period of abuse that's going to start where the abuser is in a bad place and the abuser is back into that mindset of thinking negatively about you and feeling bad about you and feeling that struggle within themselves about who you are. And so the abuse could continue for a while, so you may just, in that state of being shocked and surprised that it's back, you are wondering, oh my gosh, here it is. What am I going to do? Or maybe I did something to cause it. So you start questioning yourself, what did I do? Because maybe it wasn't that bad before and now it's bad again. So you will go back through that state of trying to figure out, what can I do to help this? What can I do to make it better? What did I do to cause it? Is it kind of questioning, is this going to be really bad or is this going to end? Kind of all through the thing again where you're questioning, do I have to leave this relationship? Did I maybe, just mistakenly think that it was over? You feel kind of like sad. You go through the grief process where you're feeling sad and you're struggling within yourself and you're feeling like, it feels like that betrayal again. So you go through all that. That could take quite a while as the abuse is escalating. It literally could take a week. It could take a month. It could take a year. It could take multiple years for you to work through this and get to the place where you're back to where it's like, I'm not going to tolerate the abuse. I'm not going to put up with this. I don't have to. Uh, and then all of a sudden, you're starting to get strong. You're building your self-esteem. You are pulling away from the abuser. You are maybe getting back into counseling, or maybe even thinking about getting a divorce or separating and putting up a boundary that you're not going to tolerate it. And then when the abuser senses this, the abuser at first may kind of hit you harder with abuse, try to knock you off of your stronger boundary, and you're distancing, trying to get you to second guess yourself. But if you're strong, that's not going to work, and your boundary is only going to be reinforced, that or your recognition that you have to have a boundary and that you have to separate or leave. And then at some point, the abuser is likely to say, okay, maybe I have to back off a little bit. And most of the time, the abuser does not want to lose you. And when the abuser senses that you are getting strong and you are going to leave. Now, in physical abuse, I have to warn you, physical abuse, batterers, if you're going to try to leave a batterer, you cannot tell that batterer. You cannot do that. You have to do it in a very safe way where you get outside support, you have a plan, and often you have to leave when that person is not there or have the police come while you are leaving and have a safe place to go to, which is often a shelter, a domestic violence shelter. So please, if you're planning to leave somebody who is a physical abuser and the person like threatens you with harm if you're going to leave, please do not do this on your own. Seek help from a licensed counselor knowledgeable in abuse or from a domestic violence center, and know that you can always call 911 to get help when you feel physically threatened, even if that person hasn't actually hit you, but to safely leave the house or to get something that you need out of the house in order to leave. So, but if you're in an abusive situation where there isn't physical violence and the abuser realizes, hey, this person's getting stronger, I might actually lose them, there may be a period of admitting, okay, I'll change, I'll do better, I'll do whatever you want, I'm sorry, yeah, I don't treat you right. Often that's called the honeymoon stage, where the person might love bomb you and bring you gifts and make you feel like it's, going to be fine. But an interesting thing happens at this point in the crazy cycle of abuse. The abuse victim who had to work that hard to get strong, to get to the place where they said no to abuse and to maintain that stand when the abuser switches and gets nicer and stops doing the abuse, the victim questions themselves and questions, maybe I overreacted. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I made it worse than it was. Instead of feeling like vindicated and this is good, you will question yourself and think that you were too strong. This is because of that just pervasive self doubt that is so strong in an abuse victim that an abuse victim has trouble trusting their own feelings, emotions, their own thoughts, their own perceptions. And the abuser knows this. The abuser is skilled in this verbal and especially emotional abuse. The purpose of emotional abuse is to throw you off balance, is to make you question yourself. So often the abuser in this state of coming back into the like non-abusive state or the less abuse or love bombing is to throw you off, is to make you doubt your stance of setting that boundary and to make you question whether or not the abuse was abuse or was really that bad, or at least to believe that the abuser can change. Now, I'm not going to say that some people that are abusive can't change, because they can. Usually it takes a lot of work for a lengthy time period with a therapist that understands abuse, and it takes the victim holding very firm boundaries of no tolerance. But oftentimes, this reaction by the abuser to your boundary is purposefully manipulative to get you to question yourself, so you back down. So when you back down and you question yourself, the abuser knows that you're questioning yourself and doubting yourself, and then the tension will build again. As you drop your boundary, the tension will build, the abuse will happen again, and the whole cycle starts all over again. So the crazy cycle of abuse is that the victim goes through self-doubt of doubting their own perceptions, their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own pain over the abuse, and their own boundaries, and will wonder whether or not even their boundary was reasonable. even getting to that point, even though it takes sometimes, like I said, it can take years to get to that boundary. It might only take a very short time of the abuser starting to be nice and love bomb you to make you think that you were crazy to even set that boundary. And then the crazy cycle is also that you're doubting yourself as the abuse is happening and wondering, is it you or is it really abuse? Did you cause it? Is there something that you can do to prevent it, if only? And maybe you're making a big deal. And then as the abuser is telling you all through that abuse, it's not abuse, you're sensitive, you're overboard, you're never happy, it's never good enough for you. You will be doubting yourself too. But that crazy cycle continues even through that time of setting a boundary when you allow the abuser to kind of get in there and make you question whether or not it was really that bad after the abuser pretends to be nice and love bombs you. So you really got to be careful when you are setting boundaries with an abuser that you hold firmly to the knowledge of the fact that the abuse was real, the abuse was that bad, the abuse cannot continue, and that the abuser is 100% responsible for the abuse, and the abuser has to change and has to get help to change. So I hope that this gives you a little bit of insight into why it's one so hard to set boundaries in an abusive relationship and why it is hard to maintain those boundaries. And I need to say at the end of this that you don't have to tolerate abuse, any kind of abuse in any relationship for any length of time. So you have a right to be in a relationship that is not abusive, that is respectful, that validates and rather than discounts you. So I hope that this helps you to get an understanding about yourself so that you can figure out how to get off of that crazy cycle in an abusive relationship. God bless you. I have a playlist of videos on abuse if you'd like to go in and see more. And you always can write me and ask me a question. And I promise you, I will email you back. Thank you.